Hi, welcome to another episode of Ask Augustin. Today I'm going to talk about the arpeggio passages in Bach. There's a couple of them, but the two main ones are both in the Chaconne. There's also one in the fugue of the first sonata. When we have to do arpeggios, I think it's useful to think, why is this arpeggio there? Like, what's the purpose of this arpeggio? And there are different kind of types of arpeggios. There are some arpeggios in the violin repertoire where the point really is to hear every note very, very clearly, a little bit like pearls on a string. You know, that's kind of the feeling that you have when you have arpeggios that are like in ricochet, for example. But in Bach, I don't think that's really the point, to be exactly to play like totally regularly the notes. The point is more that Bach is writing passages in 3 voices and 4 voices, and wants us to be able to follow all 3 voices, all 4 voices simultaneously. But of course we can't really sustain that. So the purpose of the arpeggio really is for us to be able to hear and comprehend and absorb all the voices at the same time, as though we were listening to, I don't know, an organ or something like that. When you play arpeggios, it's actually, the priority should not be that they're totally regular. The priority should be on the voicing. So, and how you achieve that is kind of up to you. There's no set rule how exactly you're supposed to break the arpeggio, whether the notes should overlap or whether they should be clearly separated. A lot of it is left up to you. So in the Chaconne, it starts with, he writes out the first couple of beats, so you know that this is the pattern that you start with. I prioritize the voicing, so I try to show the top voice and the lower voice for the cadence. And now there is this line that happens first at the bottom, the middle voice, top voice. So it's a repeat of the same thing we just had, but now what was on the bottom is now on the top. So before I was kind of emphasizing the bottom, kind of stretching those. Now I do it at the top. There's certain harmonies where it's helpful to really hear the chords to in order to feel the harmony. Then it's useful to overlap a little bit more. So for this one. So now we get to the point where we have to find a solution, because coming up just a few bars later is a point where you have 4 notes. So you can no longer do it with you're gonna have to add more notes. So you need to start playing sextuplets, and oftentimes people make the switch there. The problem with that is that that's not actually a point where the phrase restarts, and it feels like a new beginning when you do that. So the other way to do it is that you do it at the start of that variation, because of course the Chaconne is a series of variation where the bass line gets repeated every 4 bars. The other possibility is here. To already go into sextuplets. There are lots of nuances that can be found in this to show what's happening harmonically, show the voicing, to bring out important notes within the chords. The big arpeggio passage in the Chaconne that I just played a little bit from starts very softly, and you have to pace yourself, because in each variation the tension increases. It becomes more and more dramatic until you reach this incredible climax. So be sure to also look at the whole passage, where you start and where you're going, because it should gradually build in tension and drama throughout this whole arpeggio passage. The second arpeggio passage in the Chaconne is different. It's in major, and it already starts very, very strongly, and it's pretty short. It's just 8 bars long. It's difficult because it starts right away. The whole thing is in 4 voices. And it's become tradition for I'm not quite sure why actually, but part of it's kind of like a tradition that a lot of violinists play this as chords. Something like this, and I'm not sure. It has never quite convinced me, but there are tricky things about it. For one thing, you really need to show the bass line, and then the hard thing is that you start having these eighth note thing that's, and then, and then, and then. The solution I found now that I rather like, it sounds a little crazy, but as I said before, there are no like laws on how to play arpeggios. The point is get the voicing of the chords across in a powerful and clear way. So I'm actually playing groups of 13. So I go. So I go once across, and I don't go back to the G string. And this way, I keep a quarter note motion. Because if I went back to the G string, then you would hear, you would basically hear an eighth note pulse at the bottom, and I don't quite want that. So. So now it gets pretty intense. This chord is it's the hardest place of chord in this, just because of the stretch. So as you can see, I start to overlap more already here actually, and then of course I have to bring out the eighth note, and then but then I go back actually to more arpeggiated. I basically play the double stops when these lines appear. Now the second from the bottom voice. Again, it's helpful to play this as double stop because it will be clearer than if I go. Then we will just hear mainly the bottom voice, but. So I think that in Bach, the main thing in the arpeggio passages is to show the voicing and let it make us hear the full chord as clearly as possible. There are no laws about how many notes exactly you should play or how much the arpeggios should overlap. I think you just have to use kind of your judgment, your taste, and just find solutions that fit each passage in the voicing. I hope that's helpful, and I'll see you next time.